Call meeting to order. Roll call, please, Judy.
Gary Bailey,
Here.
Sean Dooley,
Here.
Deborah Potter,
Here.
Evan Whipple,
Here.
Bill Estes.
Present. Approval of the agenda. This is the revised agenda. We put Amy Warren on. Accept a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda approved. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved. John, financial report, please.
Financial report to the Greensburg Municipal Airport. We have the three separate accounts in our airport improvement account. This is just a clerical thing. It shows a negative $19,724.71. In the aviation rotary fuel account, $61,171.88. In airport operations, it shows $407,379.18. Total of all three accounts combined, $448,826.35.
Okay. Mr. Schaefer, construction report.
Yes. We have one action item, but before we do that, we'll just give a little update. They did do a final walkthrough of the grade and drain phase, which concludes HIS's time for the most part on site. It was very wet, and John Feister did get his car stuck out there. So if you all see him, you can have a good laugh at his expense. But it was wet, so there wasn't a lot of walking done. But we had already been working on, we had another survey completed comparing, the last time we had the surveys, there were some deficiencies in the grades. They were able to correct all of the deficiencies in the runway safety area. There's still little differences in some of the swale areas, but we've concluded that they'll work. And so we're moving on. So we've got all those numbers. Not quite ready to present those numbers on the final closeout to you just yet. We have presented them to HIS. We expect some pushback on some of that. They were over on the cut on payment, under on the borrow than we anticipated. So it's going to be a lot less than what we forecasted at the end of the year last year. So that's a good thing. So the amendment request that we have into Victor is going to go way down. So that'll be a good thing. It's always better to reduce things than increase things. So that should be a much better conversation with Victor. So basically we want them to agree to quantities, and then after we get them to agree to quantities, then we'll discuss the contract time. And basically they had 114 rain days granted, but they were still 78 days past their contract time. So their contractual completion time. So we'll have to address that, but step by step, we're going to address the quantities first, and then the time issue. So that's where we're at. That hopefully we have that all ready to go for the January meeting. That's the plan. Paving and lighting. The crew, Feister got his car stuck staking the trees for the tree trimming on the south end, and also those trees on the low property on the north end. So those have been staked. They know which trees to trim. There are a few trees that are a little deeper in that they'll come back and stake after they've cleaned off the front portion of that. So Omer is anticipating to work on that over the winter. So
Mo's still planning on doing their trees on their property?
No, that changed. They decided they weren't interested in cutting the trees, so we will, and those trees were not included in O'Mara's original, but right now, it's just a couple trees, so I think they're just gonna work it in. So, we have no pay requests or no action items on the grade and drain for HIS until we get all those quantities agreed to. So right now, there's just one action item on the paving and lighting portion in that AIP 31. So this is the actual supplemental grant. If you recall, paving and lighting is funded over 2 grants. You have one discretionary grant, which is AIP 30, and then you have the supplemental funding, which is AIP 31. So this is off of the 31 grant. It's partial pay request number 7, and the amount of $6,992.50, and that is 100% federal funds.
Motion to
Yes, please.
approve that. I'll make the motion. We approve AIP 31 partial pay number 7 in that amount, $6,992.50.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Okay. I think that's everything I had. The CIP was submitted. You approved that last meeting. It was submitted by the day. The only feedback we've got is that they probably will not fund the amendment out of your bill, which is not a bad thing for you, because that'll free up your bipartisan infrastructure money to be used for the next project that we had, which was a jet turnaround at the intersection of Bravo and the old runway, so that if a jet comes in, they actually have some place to park rather than getting up to the terminal area and getting stuck. So the idea is we'll create a little handle turnaround right there, and they can pull off and park right there, and then we can figure out if you rent a fuel truck or how we get it fueled. But that'll at least give you an interim place to park them until we get other improvements made. That's everything I have. Any questions? Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Paul.
Mr. Cribbett.
Evening, everyone. Few things to report. First of all, with regard to the Banks property, we closed on that today, so we're done with that. That leaves us one. The Robbins Trust property, you may recall that we got the appraisal that was retained by the appraiser that was retained by the Robbinses, and it was quite a bit higher than our appraisals, court-appointed appraisal, and then our privately hired appraiser. So I would like for our appraisers to look at that and give me some input on the types of things that they see as far as issues. And I talked with the fellow by the name of Griffin, who did the review appraisal. And when I spoke with him, he said, well, Don, he says, what you really want is you want me to do a review appraisal of the Hopkins appraisal, just like I did. That way we're comparing apples to apples. He was not really truly an appraiser in connection with the Larry Meisner appraisal, which is the one we hired. He was the review appraiser, and he looked at the methodology and gave us his opinion as to whether the proper methodology had been used to arrive at the figure that Mr. Meisner. So now he thinks that what we want is for him to do the same thing with regard to the Hopkins appraisal. So hitting you kind of last minute, because this all came up kind of last minute, I stuck in front of you tonight a review appraisal contract. Now, that's essentially an FAA form, and it's the same contract that we used to hire him to do the review appraisal of the Meisner appraisal. So I'm asking for the board to approve that tonight so that we can enter into it It's the same price as what he charged to do the review of the Meisner appraisal. So that's really the only action item I have for you tonight is asking for you to approve the contract. And by the way, the FAA insists on you having contracts with your appraisers. So somewhere down the line, we get ready to seek reimbursement for this. They're going to want to see copies of the contracts. So I'm asking for permission for Bill to sign the review appraisal contract for $1,500. So I don't know if there are any questions about that.
Question, and I'll certainly be in favor of when the vote comes up, but I just question review appraisers, is that done, I mean, I know it's done on our appraiser, on our appraisal, that's our system, that's a federal system. Is that commonly done or done at any time on landowners appraisers?
It can be done anytime, John, and of course the idea is that we may very well, if this actually ends up at a trial, we may want Mr. Griffin to come in and testify as to what he thinks, if anything, is wrong with the methodology used by Mr. Hopkins. And he was pretty guarded on what he said to me, but I had already sent him the Hopkins appraisal, and I kind of think he may have some issues with the way he appraised that. I mean, he mentioned to me, well, I noticed he put the residential portion of the real estate in, even though the residential part is not being taken. But he used it to calculate figures, and by doing that, it substantially increased the value. So to answer your question, I don't think it's always used, but you got a bit of a unique.
But you've seen it used before.
I've seen it used before,
In this kind of case, okay.
and I think the reason you'd want to do it here is because of the dollar. We're talking quite a bit of a difference, and so I think we need an expert to be prepared to testify if there are issues with regard to the methodology used. Did I answer your question, John?
Yes, you did, yeah. If there's no further discussion, I would make a motion that we authorize Bill to sign on behalf of the board this contract.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved.
All right, and the last time I was here a month ago, I reported with regard to the fact that we ended up with some responses to some discovery that came in very last minute, right before the discovery cutoff. And so I felt like we needed some more time to actually be able to follow up on that, and including I anticipate taking the deposition of Mr. Hopkins, but I really would like to do that after we get the report from the review appraiser. And also I've sent some interrogatories out to Mr. Seaver, the attorney for the Robbinses, and I've asked him to give me some information, experience, times testified on behalf of Mr. Seaver, those types of things. And I'd really like to have those answers to interrogatories, giving those types of details before I take Mr. Hopkins' deposition. So I've actually written to Seaver and asking when I can anticipate that, and starting to try to schedule that. So, but at any rate, to get back to the point I was getting ready to address, we now have a new trial date. The trial date is March 13th. It's a Monday, and it's scheduled for 3 days. I anticipate that I'm going to need at least one witness from the board, and we can talk about how we do that. Could be, I think the board members that have been on here the longest are obviously Bill and John, and so they go back all the way to the time when this airport expansion actually was in the planning stages 20 years ago. So we're probably looking at one of them, but March 13th is the date. I do have a discovery cutoff of January 11th. I was a little surprised it was that short, but it is what it is. We'll work with it. And we also then, as I had mentioned in connection with a prior case, in fact, you gave me authority, I think it was in the Sturchy case, which was the first one that was actually scheduled for trial, that there's a statutory requirement that we make an offer of settlement no less than 45 days before the trial date. Well, that's toward the end of January. So I'm going to be coming in to the board, either coming in, or I may email you ahead of time. I hate to make trips down here if it's not necessary, but I felt like today I was able to coordinate the banks closing with the meeting. So, but I'm going to be asking you for authority to make an offer. And we know what our appraiser appraised it at. We know what the court-appointed appraisers appraised it at. And I'm going to be making a recommendation as to what I think the offer should be. And remember, I don't think we talked about this at a board meeting. I think maybe Bill and I know have talked about it, that there is a provision in the statute that once we make that offer, if the award from the jury comes in higher than that award, then the landowner can get attorney's fees paid by us, by this board. And Mr. Stever's counting on the fact that the jury will, if nothing else, split the baby in half and go somewhere above our appraisal. And his comment to me at one point was, if I get $1 more than what you offered, then I get my attorney's fees up to $25,000. So it's a little bit of a game, but it is important, I think, to a lot of times in negotiations, lawyers, we lowball things. I'm not sure that's in your best interest in something like this. I think we need to be more realistic about it. So I'll get you something, probably emailed, attorney-client privilege, because it will be a recommendation, and we can go from there. But I am going to need some action at your next board meeting. So with regard to the Steve Lowe abrogation easement, I did receive the fully executed abrogation easement, including the consent by the bank. So you may remember I had this one signed by Mr. Lowe only last month. Now we have it signed by everybody. That easement is currently in the recorder's office for recording, and so I expect to get it back. They got a policy that's a little different than anybody else in the state. They hold on to them for at least a week before they send it back to you. And now the day they receive it will be the recording date, but they won't send it back to me until they have it for a period of time. So I expect to get that back shortly. I did file a motion to dismiss the Lowe litigation. I have not received an order, and I'm reading between some lines. I think I know why I have not received an order, and that's because before the order was entered, we received an order to pay an appraiser, a court-appointed appraiser, and appraiser's fee. Remember, we talked about that there was a possibility that they had already been appointed, and there was a possibility. So you have on your bill approval tonight, you had one of those for Mr. Borges, $1,137. And then today, I got another one for William Smith that you don't have and you haven't seen, and it's for $150. So it is was not set for approval tonight. The judge's order did say 10 days, which I'm not sure how you do that if you don't have a board meeting within 10 days. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and front that and include it in my bill when I bill you for that. I expect as soon as those appraisers are paid, we're going to get an order dismissing the Lowe case. I think the judge is probably holding on to the order for now. Finally, on the Haston case, last meeting I reported that we did have everything signed and they were again in the recorder's office, and I now have it. So everything's done on Haston. The document's been recorded and we're all done with it. So, are there any questions? Okay. Well, as Paul said, I wish you all had a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I guess I won't see you until after the New Year. So
Appreciate your work, Don.
Thank you, Doug.
Ms. Amy?
Hello, good evening.
I'm here to talk about a few different items with you tonight. The first being that it's that time of year where we start, auditing our general ledger accounts, making sure where we're supposed to be as far as budget goes. And especially with our new bookkeeping system, we just started last December, so we're just a year into it. We started a little bit earlier than we would have, which is good. We caught a few things that with the 3 different funds were miscategorized. So what I told Bill and John was that next month I will have a much more thorough report for you with updated numbers in the correct of things in the correct categories, so that you have a better idea of what is being spent out of what fund and what's being receipted into what fund. I apologize if the reports don't look as you're used to. If you are not aware, Betsy did retire effective October 31st. So I have learned a lot in a short amount of time. She had all the things for airport under control, and so I really didn't have to learn that part. So I learned a lot in a short amount of time. So because of that, and doing, well, my own job as well, as well as hers in this short amount of time, I did not have the time that I was hoping to get you a more accurate report with the funds. So that being said, next month you should have something that's a little bit more thorough. Any questions on that before I move on?
No, just clarification, all the money's accounted for, it's just categories, money coming in
Yes.
and out in different categories.
Yes,
Need to
and
be
in fact,
transferred from-
some of the stuff that you see in front of you, you may go, that looks like the negative 19 in the 6603. Only because of a time constraint and wanting to get stuff to you, it is not that. That is not what that number is, because things are double booked in that one specifically. So there are double expenditures. So once I get those figured out, it's going to look as it should, and it's not going to be that negative. So
Understand, yeah. And some of the monies that, just for clarity, we all know the clarification is some of the monies that came back to us for reimbursement money from the feds were put in the operations account, and they'll end up being in the improvement account.
Yes.
So it'll just be a matter of moving,
yes,
just changing the transactions. Gotcha.
yes.
Okay.
But everything's been paid. That needs to be paid.
Good deal.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay. The second thing that I would like to ask permission/recommend, the Jackson County Bank account does not have the ability currently to do ACH payments. And I think with as large a payments as we make out of that account, it would behoove us to add that. The lady that I spoke to from Jackson County Bank said it would be about a $20 a month additional charge. So I wanted to put that out there ahead of this. I don't know if we would be using it often enough to I know it's $20 a month, but I just think it's a good idea. It makes me nervous sometimes putting those large checks in the mail, especially this time of year, either getting lost or not getting somewhere on time. And ACH payments are going to be a much more direct route. So
Would that be for incoming monies also, or?
it could be,
Yeah.
yes.
Or
I don't
reimbursement
think,
monies.
yeah, well, honestly, we don't have anything right now coming in ACH to Jackson County Bank.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah,
But they've been going into the airport operations account, so.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's just a motion. I know for the council, I did this and I did a resolution. If you would like me to, I can get one drafted up and I can bring it next month.
Do we need a resolution? I think
Will the bank require a resolution even?
I'm not sure. She acted like I could do it right then if I wanted to add it to it. So I'm not sure. I didn't have to with First Financial. It was just more of a bookkeeping
Yeah.
for the council, just to give me permission, basically.
Any discussion on that about the $20 fee, if you have pros or cons, or?
Do you really feel it's something that we would use year-round, or would it be something that we would want to use maybe in, like that you're saying, this time of year when it's possibility that things can get lost?
It's definitely something that it's being requested more often by companies. And sometimes you don't really even have a choice, that they make you pay that way. So I don't see any of ours doing that right now, any of our vendors, but it could be something that in the future we may not have a choice in some of those things, in some of the payments. I could see it being used year-round, to answer your question, yes. It is also very nice to have it be an instant or less than 24-hour payment instead of waiting 7 days to 10 days to get it paid and received.
I think we could just do it as a motion.
Probably. And is that it's $20, is that a reasonable fee for, I mean, I don't know what.
It was originally 35, and I said I don't know that they're going to go for, because I don't know if we would use it monthly or if we would use it bi-monthly. It kind of depends on, and so she said, well, I can probably justify taking the cost down to 20. If you would like me to bring back more information next month, I would be happy to do so.
I'd be kind of interested to.
Because I don't see anything happening this month where I would need to use it in the next month.
And I assume that this is because we are talking large sums or things like that, because, I mean, like, the bank I deal with doesn't charge for ACH at all. So,
I think that's a good point, and it's something that I can ask about, because I think First Financial, I think we have the ability to do so with that account. It's just Jackson County, she told me that we do not have that access. So I can dig a little deeper if it would make you feel more comfortable and get some better answers.
I mean, if you're not gonna need it, it might be worthwhile, but
Sure.
so we can find out if that's.
Absolutely.
With everybody else, I mean.
Okay.
No problem. I will do that. And then the final thing, well, almost the final thing. If you want, they can make a motion to accept the William Smith, and I can go ahead and get it paid.
Oh, fine.
We've done that with council.
Okay, sure.
So if you want to go ahead and make a motion, I can add it, and it's, as long as it's in the minutes, I can go ahead and pay it.
What about the other, there was 2 appraisers, weren't there, Don?
One of them's already on.
One of them is.
I already
Okay.
had it, so
Okay,
the
well,
other
I'll
one,
I'll make a
Smith was the only
motion, we
one that
pay Bill
didn't.
Smith, what is it, $150?
Hundred.
Yes.
Yeah, 150.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved.
Now, there was a third appraiser, I haven't heard anything about that one yet, so we may still get one more, I don't know.
The last thing that I wanted to recommend, and just get your support on if you are okay with this, with the hangar rental prices going up 10% starting this next go-round, I would really like to send out updated contracts to all hangar rentals. We have some that are still the original contract, we don't update them, and I just think it would be a good idea, and we will send those out with the invoices. I would really like to send self-addressed stamped envelopes with it so that they don't feel like it's an additional burden on them to mail it back in. I just feel like it would be good bookkeeping to get updated contracts.
Agreed.
I don't think that's I just want to make sure everyone
Sure,
is
yeah.
okay with that and knew that I was going to do that.
Sure.
I also think it would be good that they're signing with the updated prices.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
any other questions for me?
No?
All right, thanks, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Next up, Jerry Scheidler, and Jerry is sick. And he told me this morning everything at the airport is the same, except that he had to go out on the runway with a shovel and shovel the mud off the runway from guys that got stuck yesterday.
Now, you should have called Feister.
Yeah.
And now he's ill.
But anyway, okay, next up is approval of bills.
We've got the bills listed here in front of you, like I say, on this spreadsheet we shared with you. And of course, this is the first of the month, so that's what we have on December 1. And that, of course, changes what can be put on or not put on. But these are the figures that were presented to us on this paper, on our bills.
Everybody's looked at them?
You know what, we paid.
Any discussion?
motion that we approve the bills as presented to us, as listed.
Quick question. The $189,159 on acute HIS, is that something that was that from last month?
It's listed here from, that is from September 30th is the invoice date, or the invoice date September 30th, 2022.
It kind of sounded familiar, but I just didn't.
It kind of got sent back because of Betsy.
You mean,
That one I called you about this morning, the 189,000,
yes, the reason that
that number 13.
in the conversion, it was in that folder, and in my mind, it was in that folder and it had already been taken care of, and it was in that folder to be taken care of, so there was a little bit of confusion there. That's why it was not paid until this month. It should have been paid last month.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll make a motion, we pay bills.
You second the motion?
I'll second the motion and
Okay.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yours. Okay.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No. I'm in favor. Comments from the audience or the board? If not, I'll accept the motion to adjourn and meet January 5th, 2023.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.